Thank you so much for joining us again on TVC Breakfast. Now to our first discussion as we bring in our guest, and it's regarding the directive by the president, perform or find your way out. And this then warning is coming from the President Bola Tinubu, who says any minister or presidential aide that underperforms in the discharge of his or her assigned duties and responsibilities will be sacked. The President spoke when he declared open the 2023 cabinet retreat for ministers, as well as presidential aides and permanent secretaries and top government functionaries, with a focus on delivering on the renewed hope agenda.
You are going to sign a bond of understanding between you, the ministers, the permanent secretary, and myself. If you are performing, nothing to fear. If you miss the objective, we review. If no performance, you leave us.
President Bola Tinubu there speaking or addressing his aides as well as ministers and permanent secretaries at, from the Federal Civil Service during the ongoing presidential retreat. And we have with us a public affairs analyst and an economic expert, Adeyemi Ajayi. It's good to see you again. Welcome to our midst. All right, so the retreat is on. It will not be the first time, ministers will be having their, regular retreat. It's done in several quarters. National Assembly just had theirs a few weeks ago. But what ticks you the most about this this particular gathering and the president's stance? It will also not be the first time he will address his ministers this way as to deliver or you get sacked.
Yeah, I think we should look at his mindset first. The president is very keen about results, very, very keen. And permit me to give a little anatomy of this. Sure. The president, when he was coming in, he gave 8 priority areas he's going to focus on. The first, he's talking about ending poverty, economic growth and job creation. He's talking about food security, national security, inclusivity, anti-corruption stance. He's also talking about fairness and the rule of law. Now, these 8 priority areas have 8 other focus areas. Now, he has given every ministry, every minister, including the permanent secretary, what we call their deliverables, presidential deliverables. They're very clear with KPIs for the next 4 years. Every year you need to deliver on something. Now, one thing that is very different about this retreat is the fact that, one, is asking all the players that, see, it is not time to play game. The second thing is, we've had this before, it's not the first time, but another thing is this, is the regular, there will be more frequent meeting to review performance. It's clear. And it's so serious to the extent that he has established an office called the Performance Office, being headed by Adizabala. He made it very clear that, see, and he's going to track everybody. The KPIs are there. Every quarter, there will be a review of this performance. And at that point, he's going to monitor the KPIs. And the KPIs are not just blown from the air. There are baselines for them. There are projections. And these projections are things that are realistic. Then one other thing that I would say that really, really makes this different is he has set a system to fuse the politicians and the service together. So the marriage is stronger now. So he is quite very serious about it. If you look at the ministers in terms of the outlay, you have technocrats, you have politicians, a blend. But let me tell you, those politicians are imbibing the spirit of, performance from the technocrats. So the road is very clear. And it means business. It's either you do it or you get out.
Well, so the president said we can see the chaos, but don't be afraid. Don't look at the sky. Be focused. Nigeria's problem. That's to tell you that Nigeria's problem is really overwhelming. When the president inaugurated the ministers, appointed the ministers, there had been, criticisms from left, right, and center saying that no, you just mentioned politicians, that these are just, recycling of the old guards. And the technocrats, maybe they will just do 1 or 2 little things. But some are not so excited about the appointees. Do you feel the president has set them up for scrutiny, one? And do you also have confidence in how much they can deliver?
Okay, one thing that we should look at in this part of the world, when song changes, dance step will change. Yeah. The president has changed the song, the dance step will change. Yeah, he has brought them in a lot of things. In fact, I would tell you some of the politicians that have come in, I will tell you clearly they've started working. They've hit the ground running. They've hit the ground running straight. At least I know of Ministry of Defense. He's doing all he can to address the issue of security. And we also have a lot of people that hit the ground running. So it's not even this cabinet that is setting the tone. They started setting the tones themselves. The Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Doris, also you see that she's gone around several countries reviewing our bilateral and multilateral agreements. The Ministry of Interior cleared outstanding passport within a very short time. Bosun Tijani, the Minister in charge of Communication and Digital Economy, Bosun is out. I saw his blueprint for the next 4 years, a 33-page document. Fantastic. Talking about robotics, advanced technology, creating hubs in Nigeria and also looking at Africa. So all these things are quite on the table. I want to tell you this. They had a premonition while accepting this responsibility. So it's not a new thing to them.
With the fact that some of them used to be strong critics of the government.
Absolutely.
Of the previous day. So now being in government, they have been faced with, okay, this is the real challenge. Now prove yourself.
You know one thing the president does from time? I've studied him all the way from 1999. He has something. If you say this is the problem, you have the solution, we'll call you to the table. Come and solve it. Whether you are in his party or outside his party, he believes in just solution. Bring this solution to the table. And if the solution is not working, he asks for alternative. That's just his philosophy. So I think it's something that has been his leadership philosophy. And people who really study him should know. If you want to work with a leader, the first thing you should learn is his philosophy. If you go outside his philosophy, then you are going outside the game. So absolutely, I think he has set the tone all the way from the beginning.
Right. And, a particular description has also been used on the president, perhaps probably in a good light, in a positive way, the term that the president is micromanaging his ministers. And I wanted to, also help dissect that. And of course, he's also being compared. He has now been compared with, his predecessor, where we understand that the former president rarely supervised. But looking at this, kind of the leadership that the president is exuding at this time now, what do you think? How much of a difference do you reckon this will make? As against, I already know your caliber, I already know you can deliver, you've delivered before, so I give you the mandate, just go and serve out your term. But now he's saying no matter where you're coming from with all your accolades, you will still be scrutinized from time to time by Hadiza Bala Usman. And if you don't like her, come meet me directly, but she's the one that will be scrutinizing you. What do you see when you look at the display of individuals, the interesting array of personalities that will now be scrutinized this way under the presidency?
Okay. In the theory of transformational leadership, one thing that stands out, if you want to transform as a leader, you must keep close marking of the people you hand over work to. That is not micromanaging. Micromanaging is I give you the job to do and I'm doing the job for you. Okay? But what he is doing is, I want you to do 1, 2, 3. Give me results. He's not just going to give you a mandate and go to sleep. He wants to see results. So, well, people said it's micromanaging. I don't think so. What he's rather doing, if you check all their mandates, if you check, the roadmap for many of these ministries, he already told them all these things. It's just a ceremony now.
Right.
And they know. So he is not micromanaging. Rather, he is setting the tone and monitoring. There's something we call monitoring and evaluation in public service. That's what he's doing largely. And he's not joking about it. In fact, he has gone to the extent that he wants to digitalize this scorecard. So there's something we call the Ministry's Performance Management Scorecard. He's setting up all these things. And it's beautiful that we have something like this. Before we set the tone, everybody goes to sleep, and after 4 years, we just drink tea and we go. We say, no, I want us to set this target. and we need to monitor it. It's different from coming after your task. It's not after your task, it's after results.
Right.
In now looking at this, because Nigeria's problem is really vast, it's very large, how would we be able to determine or identify a performing minister? If, for instance, if a minister is not performing, is underperforming, what we normally see is to see that the person is not returned for the second term if the administration gets the second term. What would you like to see? Is it that, okay, you are not performing, in a year's time, you're out, or in 2 years' time, you're out, or we just wait till when we seek re-election? Because the president also say, if you think we're not performing, then do not return us back for a second term if we want to seek it.
Now, you see, thank you for that question. One beautiful thing is, I really wish you get detail of this performance bond he talked about. The performance bond had clear KPIs, measurable. Let me tell you one of it. In Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, for example, one of the KPI is to revitalize the industrial system in Nigeria. Some of the dead industry is part of the KPI of the minister to come up with. It's part of the KPI of the ministers to look at the export processing zones and see how this can work. We're also going to activate our bilateral, multilateral. So they're very clear with timelines. So the KPIs are there. If you go to all these ministries, the KPIs, they are there, they understand it, and he's working. He worked closely with everyone. He didn't wake up and say, oh, just go. No, they agreed. Everybody sat at the table. These are the KPIs. These are the areas of priority. What do you want to achieve? And everything was placed on the table. For example, in defense, they have about 13 key deliverables. In industry, they have about 22 key deliverables. If you go to water resources, they have their deliverables clearly measured. So the question you ask is, how do we know a minister that is performing? It's by your scorecard. It's simple. At the end of Q1 2024, what have you achieved? He's going to supply them with resources, their change management strategy, and even give them the opportunity to develop their strategic plan, their initiatives. What program do you want to run? He gave them that leverage, but I just want this result. The way you go about it, fine. Within a very good system, just design the strategic initiative, but I want result.
This is what I want to see.
And if he doesn't get that result, it's measurable. It's not anything that will start thinking that it's qualitative. It's quantitative, driven by numbers.
And, all right, so what would be a fair result? I don't think you've answered that part of Ibrahim's question. What would be under these clear deliverables now? So if you don't meet the mark, what would be a fair result? Would it look like in the regular, office setting? Perhaps there will be a warning, there will be a query, and then it builds up. If your file is full, so to speak, then, more stricter measures. But in this case of the ministers, and we've seen people saying we don't want to see ministers who don't do anything and yet get to wait till the end of the 4 years. But what do you think would be a fair measure that should be meted out to any defaulting minister?
Okay, thank you very much. There are 3 ways to define this. Performing below expectation, performing as expected, and performing above expectation. If you are performing below expectation, there are diagnoses for this. Is it because you don't have the right resources, or there are issues and all that? You discuss with him. Now, if he sees clearly that you have everything, this performance management system in the civil service is not something of today. There's something we call FCIP, the Federal Civil Service Strategic Implementation Plan, being driven by Head of Service, Dr. Folashade Yemi. She has this for the service. And I think the template is coming now for the political office holders. So back to your question is, how do we now measure actually who should go? It's not just at one appraisal. Let me use that. Appraisal of Q1, you're not hitting your numbers. Appraisal of Q2, you're not hitting your numbers. You are below average. Let me use that. You are below average. And of course, for him setting up performance office with somebody like Adizabala, the clear achievement metrics are clear to everybody. So if you are not meeting it, it's not story. You will see it yourself. It's not anybody victimizing you or saying anything. You are below expectation. And if you are below expectation, you have no excuse. You yourself, you know that this thing is not, I'm not here.
It is one thing to come up with policies, ideas, innovation, and all of that. It's another thing for the people to also key into, the dream or the vision of the administration. Because it does appear that Nigerians do not understand the policy thrust as much as they would love to see. So these ministers are meant to, carry out some of these tasks. So if they are doing some things, for instance, we have the Minister of Interior who told the passport agency, the National Immigration Service, to ensure that passports are delivered in 2 weeks. I think they fall short of some of the figures that they targeted, even though it was something, we saw something different. That's one. You have people who are working under you, they're not carrying out the job well. We have the Minister of Power. We know the kind of how it is jinxed now, and we know how tall order it is for him to solve it. Minister of Transportation, fix the road, fix everything. People are there destroying everything. So if people do not key into the strategy, this innovative ideas, would it not backfire on the ministers?
Okay, one thing that I want you to know is there are stronger stakeholders engagement now. By virtue of my interactions with about 7 ministries, there are interactions with stakeholders. It's the stakeholders that are disciples of the ministries and they work together. One advice I'll give to the ministers, if they will take it, is as much as the president has the performance office, they should also have performance team in their ministry to monitor the achievement of this thing. Otherwise, they will be failing from the beginning. They cannot have that capability to monitor that performance of people under them. Now, the question is, what if people do not buy into it? The goal is there. What people may not buy into is the strategy, is a strategic initiative, which can change. It should be a win-win on both sides. We want to achieve this thing. We have agreed it's something that is good for us. But again, as stakeholders, there will be differences. Some will agree, some will disagree. Some will say no, but let's come to the table and have conversation. For example, on the 6th of this month, there is a National Council of Establishments retreat holding in Katsina. All stakeholders will be there. The roadmap for everything will be discussed. Last week, there was discussion at the Ministry of Defense about the security situation. All stakeholders, the civil society, everybody were there. I was there. There were conversations. One thing that this government has come to do is to also engage the Nigerian people. They're not just throwing something from the top down. They're looking for reaction bottom up, so that there is an understanding and people have the integration, the sense of belonging. They have a say in the government. And of course, to a very large extent, if that stakeholder engagement is well strengthened, it tells us at the end of the day that even if there is no buy-in in terms of strategy, we're still moving towards the same goal. We can always recount whatever our strategy is.
All right. And the president also, was quoted at the retreat, the opening of the retreat that is, where he said, while he's not against borrowing, but he is looking at homegrown solutions. And I'm wondering what you make of it and how realistic that is.
Okay. At the beginning of the retreat, excuse me, he said something. He said, I don't want Harvard theory here. I want Nigerian localized team to brainstorm. If you look at the blueprints for economic growth, for example, you want something that will come from within Nigeria. Now, the borrowing is good for us to jumpstart the economy, but it's also looking at how can we do internal resourcing. What are the ways by which we can generate, revenue internally? We can boost the economy internally. He strongly believes in potential that we have in the country. Now, if you look at the roadmap written by Bosun Tijani, I read it. Most of the thing is talking about is we have resources to attract revenue from outside, and we have people to serve within Nigeria. If you're looking at industry, trade, and investment, they're also looking at having industrial park in different geopolitical zones. Now, we have a lot of trade potentials in Nigeria. We have competitive advantage that can enable us to exchange with people outside the country. If you look at African sub-region in terms of African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Nigeria has huge potential there. So what he's doing is he's telling the ministers, look inside. As much as you want help from outside, let us help ourselves.
And we have it.
Absolutely.
So apropos of what he just said, in relation to the question Kemi asked, the president said, and I quote, I believe in Nigeria, don't invite any foreigner to give me lectures about governance. I have been through it. That's him, making allusion to his days as governor in Lagos State. But then we have the IMF who always tell Nigeria, devalue your currency, do this, do that. The UN will also have its own, his own ways of, talking to African countries, dictating for the African continent. How do you think the president should handle this? Because we still need the global community to, to thrive.
Now, you see, no country can be in isolation.
Right.
Yeah. We are a community of people globally. But one thing the president is saying, as much as there are foreign policies, if you check the OPA agenda, the 80-page OPA agenda, fantastic document, one of the things he said is, I want to strengthen regional relationship as well as global partnership. Now, in global partnership, is saying that IMF is going to advise me, but I'm going to decide what to do in terms of the advice they are giving. They are not, I will not allow
Sorry to butt in, and I think I agree with you on that. During electioneering, the president said that they, something like they asked us to move away from carbon fossil fuel, and they talked about us, but they still continue, burning fossil fuel and all of that. And I said we will do it at our own pace. Absolutely. So I wanted to, speak to that as you respond to my earlier question.
Yeah, you see what the president is saying is he believes in some global policies directing the affairs of countries, but how can he localize them? Yeah, they're global, but how can we localize these things? Because most times we just bring those things into our systems without considering the peculiarity of our environment, So as much as he said that, he's saying, hey, wait a minute. We have this global policy. How does it fit into our system? If it rightly fits into our system, let us take it. If it doesn't fit into our system, don't let us swallow something that will make us turn from black to white overnight. Don't let us change our identity. Let's take this advice. Let's take this initiative. Let's test them in our environment. And if you look at President Tinubu, even while he was the governor of Lagos State, he did something quite very tremendous. He reformed the system from inside out. And I think that is what is taken to the national level. So for me, I would say critical. These foreign policies are there. How do we meet at the middle, not allowing them to, slap on us straight? So, and I think it's a very good thing that a leader should do. I think so. And
before the president appointed his ministers, of course, he had always, he had his aides and all that. But, Nigerians will be, continue to scrutinize the process and these appointees now, especially in the aftermath of, crucial policies that the president has implemented, the issue of the multiple exchange rates, which he intervened on, and of course the fuel subsidy removal. And the president has also, spoken time and time again about the fact that though it may not be yielding the desired results now, but in the long run, it's going to be for the greater good of everyone. And now that we have ministers with portfolios and they've since hit the ground running as people expect, I wonder what kind of postmortem would be, in your mind, would you like to share with us about this president's policies so far and what next?
Okay. In terms of the policies have test of time. Every policy undergoes a gestational period for active performance of the policies. At times, these policies may not work. At times, they may work. Let me pick the issue of fuel subsidy on PMS in particular. This threw the economy in disarray. Prices of items went up. The unification of the foreign exchange, that was another kettle of fish on its own. It has caused a lot of issues in terms of purchasing power, in terms of cost of living. I was doing a research this morning. I discovered that cost of living for a minimum, a Nigerian should be earning 310,649 naira. Because let's say an averagely you spend 10,000 naira in a day. And what do you spend 10,000 naira on? That's a family of 4. You feed your wife, transport, you pay for electricity, you pay, all these things. If you look at it, 10,000 naira in a day is about what you should ordinarily have at the minimum. Now, all these things went up between May and end of October. We saw trajectory went up. But again, what do I have in mind? If they put the right initiatives in place, this will be controlled. Let me talk about Forex. If, for example, we are able to settle our foreign outstandings, and again, we make capital, that's foreign capital available in the system, it will douse the tension that we'll be facing in terms of the foreign exchange challenges. But again, I do not see this happening immediately. It's something that I expect maybe Q1, Q2 next year, we may be coming close to like 750 thereabout. That's my own opinion. But again, anything can happen. I understand CBN is really working round the clock to ensure that they drive this down. If CBN can settle our outstanding between now and the end of the year and also inject the system with Forex in order for us to do trades, fantastic. By January, I think we should be singing a different song. But going by predictive analytics, that is based on what is happening now, maybe Q1 next year. But if there are prescriptive approach to it, it will change.
Such as?
Yeah, the prescriptive approach can be like, okay, you know what? These trade settlements that we have, we clear them. Another thing is we have foreign inflow. Our foreign direct investment has slowed down. Even foreign portfolio investment has also slowed down. So if you have high volume of foreign portfolio investors coming in, bringing their money, investing in our financial instruments, it will reduce the level of stress we have. And again, if we are able to control the movement of dollar within the system, which CBN should do, what I mean by that is if you have to buy from the bank. If you have to sell from the bank or from an approved person, so that we will know we are able to control the rate. We should ask ourselves question, where are these rates coming from on a daily basis? Who is putting this rate in the market? So these are things that we should consider. But I believe the CBN is working around the policies, and I strongly believe that some of those policies at the end of the day, after 4 years, will lead us to a position whereby, we can sing a better song. We can sing a better song. I strongly believe that.
That's right. So quickly before we wrap off, the thing is, we know the MDAs are really started with lots and lots of responsibilities, and the interministerial collaboration is really needed because we have the Minister of Finance who will be here and there, and some of the ministries. Is there any basis for competition? Because now their performance is meant to be measured. So maybe one ministry looking at performing more than the other ministries. What should they do? Is there basis for competition or basis for collaboration?
Okay, let me tell you this about this retreat that is going on. The retreat has given room for, if you're a minister, it's giving you opportunity to tell the president which other ministries do you think can help you to achieve your goal. It's part of what they are discussing. I am aware of that. And why is that? And that's the more reason why he's bringing the permanent secretaries as well as the politicians together, political appointees, work together. Then he's also saying that you're not just working together. The only competition you have is with yourself. Right. Yeah, you should compete with yourself, but you should harness resources from other ministry. If you look at other ministry, there are collaborations going on, there are integrations, they are bringing people together to see that how can we support ourselves. So there are interministerial integrations, and this will definitely help at the end of the day.
All right, Adeyemi Ajayi, we'll leave it at this point now. Thank you very much for your analysis and your expertise and contributions on the program this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.